Have you ever noticed that the people who seem to have the most power are the ones who need the least? They don't chase validation. They don't beg for attention. They don't collapse when someone walks away. There's something unsettling about them, something that makes others uncomfortable. And that discomfort is power, because the moment you stop needing, you become untouchable. This is not about being cold. It's not about shutting down your emotions or pretending you don't care. It's about something far more ancient, far more precise. Emotional detachment, a principle so powerful that philosophers, warriors, and leaders throughout history have guarded it like a secret weapon. Today, you're going to learn why needing nothing is the most dangerous state a person can achieve, and how you can reach it. Let's start with the uncomfortable truth. You've been conditioned to need. From the moment you were born, you were taught that your worth depends on external validation. Your parents' approval, your friends' acceptance, your partner's affection. Society built an entire system around this idea that you are incomplete without something or someone outside of yourself, and you believed it. You've spent your whole life chasing things you were told would make you whole. A relationship, a career, money, status, recognition. But here's the trap. The more you need, the weaker you become. Because need is dependency, and dependency is control. When you need someone's love, they control your peace. When you need approval, they control your confidence. When you need external validation, they control your entire sense of self. You've handed them the keys to your emotional state, and they didn't even have to ask for it. Think about the last time someone rejected you. How did it feel? Like a punch to the gut, right? Like something was ripped away from you. But why? Why does rejection hurt so much? Because you needed them. You needed their validation to feel worthy. You needed their presence to feel complete. You needed their approval to feel like you mattered. And when they took it away, you collapsed. But what if you didn't need it in the first place? What if rejection didn't touch you because you were already whole? That's the difference. Emotional detachment is not about not caring, it's about not needing. And when you don't need, rejection becomes irrelevant. You see it for what it is, someone else's decision, not a reflection of your value. This is where the shift begins. When you realize that your peace, your worth, your power cannot be given to you by anyone else, you stop looking for it outside. You start building it inside. And that internal foundation is unshakable. Now let's talk about the ancient law itself. Emotional detachment is not a modern self-help concept. It's been understood and practiced for thousands of years. The Stoics called it apatheia, freedom from passion. Not the absence of emotion, but the absence of emotional slavery. The Buddhists called it upekkha, equanimity, the ability to remain balanced regardless of external circumstances. And warriors throughout history, from samurai to Spartans, understood this principle deeply. They knew that the soldier who fears death fights recklessly. The one who accepts it fights with clarity. The same applies to life. The person who fears loss clings desperately. The one who accepts it moves with freedom. Emotional detachment is the realization that everything is temporary. People come and go. Situations change. What you have today may be gone tomorrow. And instead of fearing that, you accept it. You hold things lightly. You appreciate them while they're here, but you don't collapse when they're gone. This doesn't make you heartless. It makes you resilient. Let me give you an example. Imagine two people in a relationship. The first person is deeply attached. They need their partner's attention constantly. They panic when their partner is distant. They feel threatened by any sign of independence. Their entire emotional state depends on the other person. Now imagine the second person. They love their partner. They enjoy their presence, but they don't need them. They have their own life, their own purpose, their own peace. If the relationship ends, they'll be sad, but they won't be destroyed. Which one do you think has more power in the relationship? Which one do you think is more attractive? Which one do you think is more respected? The second one, always. Because the first one is operating from scarcity, the second one is operating from abundance. And abundance, even emotional abundance, is magnetic. People are drawn to those who don't need them. It's counterintuitive, but it's true. The less you need, the more people want to be around you. Why? Because you're not draining, you're not demanding, you're not a black hole of emotional need. You're complete, and completeness is rare. But here's where it gets deeper. Emotional detachment is not just about relationships. It's about everything, your career, your goals, your identity. Most people are emotionally attached to outcomes. They need to succeed. They need to be recognized. They need to be right. And that need creates anxiety. It creates fear. It creates desperation. Because when you need something, you're no longer in control. The outcome controls you. But when you detach from the outcome, something powerful happens. You stop being paralyzed by fear. You stop overthinking. You stop second-guessing. You act with clarity and precision because you're not afraid of failure. You've already accepted it as a possibility, and that acceptance frees you. You're no longer playing not to lose, you're playing to win. And that shift in energy changes everything. Let's go even deeper. Emotional detachment is also about your past. Most people are prisoners of their past. They carry old wounds like badges. They replay old traumas on loop. They define themselves by what happened to them. And that attachment keeps them stuck, because as long as you're emotionally attached to your past, you can't move forward. You're still living there. But emotional detachment means you acknowledge what happened. You process it. You learn from it. And then you let it go. You stop letting it define you. You stop using it as an excuse. You stop letting it control your present. This is not about denying pain. It's about refusing to be imprisoned by it. Because the past has no power over you unless you give it power. And the moment you detach from it, you're free. Now let's talk about the practical side. How do you actually develop emotional detachment? It starts with awareness. You need to become aware of your needs. What are you depending on for your happiness? Who are you depending on for your validation? What outcomes are you emotionally attached to? Write them down. Look at them. And then ask yourself, what would happen if I lost this? Would I still be okay? Would I still be me? If the answer is no, you've found your weakness. That's where you're giving your power away, and now you know where to start building. The goal is not to eliminate all needs. That's impossible. You need food. You need shelter. You need basic human connection. But you don't need any specific person, outcome, or possession to be whole. And that distinction is everything. The next step is acceptance. Accept that everything is temporary. Your relationships, your job, your health, your life. Nothing lasts forever. And instead of fearing that, embrace it. Because when you accept impermanence, you stop clinging. You stop holding on so tight that you suffocate what you have. You hold things with an open hand. You appreciate them while they're here. You give them your full presence, but you don't define yourself by them. And when they're gone, you grieve, you process, and you move forward. This is the heart of emotional detachment. Not coldness, not indifference, but freedom. The third step is building internal validation. This is the hardest part, because you've spent your whole life looking outside for confirmation that you matter. But now you have to give that to yourself. You have to become your own source of worth. And how do you do that? By aligning with your values, by keeping promises to yourself, by doing things that make you respect yourself. When you live with integrity, when you act in alignment with who you want to be, you don't need anyone to tell you you're worthy. You know it. And that knowing is unshakable. No one can take it from you. No one can question it. It's yours. Now let's address the fear. Because the biggest obstacle to emotional detachment is fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of not being enough. fear of losing what you have. These fears keep you in chains. They keep you needy. They keep you dependent. But here's the truth. Those fears are illusions. You've never been alone. You've always had yourself. You've always been enough. And what you have is not what defines you. When you face these fears directly, when you sit with them instead of running, they lose their power. You realize they were just stories. Stories you've been telling yourself to justify your need. But you don't need justification. You don't need permission. You don't need anything. You already are everything you need to be. Let me give you a real-world scenario. You're in a job you hate, but you stay because you need the income. You need the security. You need the approval of your boss. You're emotionally attached to the outcome of keeping this job, and that attachment makes you miserable. But what if you detached? What if you said, I will do my best, but I don't need this job to define me. I don't need my boss's approval. I don't need this income to be secure. I can create other opportunities. I can adapt. I can survive. Suddenly, the fear dissolves. You're no longer operating from desperation. You're operating from choice. And when you operate from choice, you make better decisions. You take smarter risks, you act with confidence, and ironically, you become more valuable because people respect those who don't need them. Now let's talk about the social dimension, because emotional detachment has a powerful effect on how others perceive you. When you're needy, people sense it. They see it in your body language. They hear it in your tone. They feel it in your energy. And it repels them because neediness is draining. It's demanding, it's exhausting. But when you're detached, people sense that too. They see confidence, they see self-sufficiency, they see someone who doesn't need anything from them. And that draws them in, because you're not trying to take, you're not trying to extract validation, you're complete. And completeness is magnetic. People want to be around you because you don't need them to be. You want them to be, and that's a massive difference. Here's another layer. Emotional detachment makes you unpredictable, and unpredictability is power. When you need someone, they can predict your reactions. They know how to manipulate you. They know what buttons to push. But when you don't need them, you become a mystery. They can't read you. They can't control you. And that makes them respect you. It makes them cautious. It makes them value you more. Because you're not just another person seeking approval. You're someone who operates on a different level, and that level is intimidating. But let's be clear about what emotional detachment is not. It's not apathy. It's not shutting people out. It's not pretending you don't care. It's not being cold or distant. True emotional detachment is the opposite. It's caring deeply without being controlled by that care. It's loving without losing yourself. It's engaging without being dependent. You still feel, you still connect, you still invest, but you don't crumble when things don't go your way. You don't collapse when someone leaves. You don't lose yourself in the process. You remain whole, and that wholeness is what makes you powerful. Let's talk about the ultimate test, loss. Because emotional detachment is most visible when you lose something. Most people fall apart. They spiral, they question everything, they lose their sense of identity. But the emotionally detached person processes the loss differently. They feel the pain, they acknowledge the grief, but they don't let it define them. They don't let it destroy them. They sit with it, they learn from it, and they move forward. Because they know that loss is part of life. And they've already accepted that. This doesn't mean they don't care. It means they care without clinging. They love without fear. They live without desperation. And that's the ultimate freedom. Now let's connect this to ancient wisdom. The Stoics had a practice called negative visualization. They would regularly imagine losing everything they had, their wealth, their loved ones, their health. Why? To prepare their minds to detach emotionally from outcomes, so that if loss came, they were ready. They weren't devastated. They were resilient. This practice wasn't about being pessimistic, it was about being realistic. It was about building emotional immunity, and you can do the same. Take a moment each day, imagine losing what you have, sit with that discomfort, feel it, and then remind yourself, I would still be okay, I would still be me. This practice doesn't make you cold, it makes you strong. Let me give you another example. Think of a warrior going into battle. If he's emotionally attached to survival, he fights with fear. He hesitates, he second guesses. But if he's accepted the possibility of death, he fights with clarity. He's focused, he's decisive, he's dangerous. The same principle applies to your life. If you're emotionally attached to a specific outcome, you operate from fear. But if you detach, you operate from power. You take risks, you speak your truth, you walk away when necessary, because you're not afraid of loss. You've already made peace with it. Now let's address relationships again, because this is where people struggle the most. They think emotional detachment means not caring about their partner, but it's the opposite. It means caring deeply without being controlled by that care. It means loving fully without losing yourself. It means being present without being dependent. When you're emotionally detached, you don't need your partner to complete you. You're already complete, and that makes you a better partner because you're not needy, you're not clingy, you're not insecure. You give freely, you love freely. And that freedom creates a healthier, stronger relationship. Because you're both choosing to be together, not because you need each other, but because you want each other. And that choice is powerful. Here's the shift. Most people enter relationships to fill a void. They're looking for someone to make them happy, to validate them, to complete them. But emotionally detached people enter relationships from a place of wholeness. They're not looking to take, they're looking to share. And that's the difference between a relationship built on need and a relationship built on choice. One is fragile, the other is unbreakable. Let's talk about the final level. Emotional detachment from your identity. This is the deepest form. Most people are emotionally attached to who they think they are. Their job, their role, their reputation, their past. And that attachment limits them because they're afraid to change, they're afraid to evolve, they're afraid to let go of the old version of themselves. But true emotional detachment means you're not bound by any identity. You're fluid, you're adaptable, you're free to reinvent yourself at any moment because you know that identity is just a construct. It's not who you really are. Who you really are is the awareness behind the identity, the observer, the witness, and that part of you is eternal, unchanging and untouchable. So here's what emotional detachment gives you. Freedom. Freedom from fear, freedom from need, freedom from control, freedom from the past, freedom from outcomes, freedom from identity. And in that freedom, you find power. Not power over others, power over yourself. And that's the only power that matters. Because when you control yourself, when you don't need anything or anyone to be okay, you become dangerous. Not in a violent way, but in a powerful way. You become someone who can't be manipulated, someone who can't be broken, someone who walks through life with quiet confidence, because you know that no matter what happens, you'll be okay, and that knowing changes everything. Now, if you've made it this far, you're not here by accident. Something in you recognizes this truth. Something in you knows that you've been living with too much need, too much dependency, too much fear, and now you're ready to change. So here's your challenge. Write this phrase in the comments. I am complete without needing anything. Not for me, not for the algorithm, but for you. As a declaration, as a commitment, as the first step toward freedom. And if you're ready to continue this journey, to explore more truths that most people are too afraid to face, subscribe, because this channel is not for the comfortable. It's for the ones who are ready to shed the old skin, to face the hard truths, to become untouchable. Welcome to the path of emotional detachment. The path where needing nothing makes you dangerous. I'll see you in the next one, or I won't, because you don't need me, and that's exactly the point.